Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. If you watch this channel, you probably, like me, really like computers. But even so, if you're like me, you probably also have things you really hate about computers. There's things that really annoy you about the computers we use. And so in this video, because I've not had a rant on this channel for a while, I'm going to present my top 5 annoying computing things. So, at 5 on my list of annoying computing things, I've got keyboards with small cursor keys. What is going on here? Why is it these days whenever I use a keyboard on a laptop or one of those smaller desktop keyboards without a numeric pad, that the cursor keys have got smaller? Do my fingers get smaller when they move towards the cursor keys? No, they don't. The cursor keys are important and they could be the right size, and I know this because in the past if you looked at a laptop it had full-size cursor keys. If you looked at a smaller desktop keyboard it had full-size cursor keys, and yet these days we've got tiny little cursor keys on the keyboard. Why is this happening? We don't make the X and the V and the Y and other keys smaller. Why the cursors? So please, computer manufacturers, can we stop having keyboards with small cursor keys? At 4 on my list is connectors getting smaller and poorer. Now, I happen to like really good connectors. Things like the XLR connectors we use in professional audio, which clip together very well, never ever come apart, never give a problem. And I also quite like things like the classic VGA connector, even the Type A USB connector. It doesn't lock, but it is a good, solid, decent sized connector. And I think the last decent smallish connector we had was a USB-B, the mini connector. And then we've got the micro USB-B connector, which we see so frequently these days. We use it on single board computers for power and things and connecting all sorts of stuff. And it's a terrible connector, it's just too small. And now we've got this USB-C. This is a marvellous connector, can do all sorts of things, but it really is too tiny to work properly for a long period of time. And I know people want to have smaller computing devices and tablets and wearables and smartphones, all that sort of stuff, and they need apparently these tiny wee little connectors, but there is a size below which you cannot make a really robust, really reliable connector. So please can we reverse the trend of smaller and poorer connectors? At 3 on my list of annoying computing things, I have multiple confirmation requesters. In other words, the situation occurs when you get dialog boxes coming up again and again and again saying, do you want to do this? Do you really want to do this? And you have to keep clicking and you can't get work done because the computer is constantly interrupting you just to be certain. Now, this particularly happens to me when I'm doing backups, when I'm copying large amounts of data from one drive to another, and I'll decide to do the backup and I'll say, copy these files. It might be replacing some previous files, updating them. Do you want to copy the files? Yes. And then a second later, another one comes up and says, oh, there's a folder with the same name. Do you really want to copy these files? Yes, because that's why I said yes a second ago. And you go away, you make a cup of tea as a lot of data is copying across, and you come back and your data hasn't finished copying because another requester has come up saying, did you really want to copy these files? Yes, I wanted to copy the sodding files. That's why I said copy the files, and I pressed once. And I sometimes get 4, 5, 6 of these coming up. And yes, I'm sure there's ways to have copying files across to avoid this if I configured it right. But really the point more generally is that there should be a box, there should be a tick box in an operating system, very easily accessible, that says, I am not an idiot. Please can I not have to constantly confirm what I want to do? If I do something wrong on a computer, if I overwrite a file I shouldn't have written, it's my fault. I will take the consequences. If I overwrite a file I shouldn't have rewritten, I'll go back to my backups. If I don't have a backup, I'm an idiot. It's my fault. So please, can we get rid of all these constantly coming up confirmation requesters? Right, we've reached number 2, which is subscription-only software. And yes, I'm looking at you, Adobe. Now, what Adobe have done, as you may be aware, is you can't buy Photoshop anymore. You can't buy Adobe Premiere or After Effects or any of these things. You have to rent them on a monthly basis. You have to subscribe to the Adobe Creative Cloud, which has got nothing to do with cloud computing really at all. But you can't buy the software outright. I edit in Premiere Pro, I use After Effects a lot, I use Illustrator and in fact almost all in InDesign and Audition, almost all the main Adobe packages, I'd be very happy to buy a new version. But I'm not happy to sign up to a system where I have to pay every month, and if I stop paying, I can't use the software and I can't use my files. That to me is utterly ridiculous. There should be a situation where you can purchase the software you use to make your living or otherwise use a computer, not having to rent it on a subscription basis. Now, okay, if people want subscription software, that's absolutely fine, great, offer them the option, but it shouldn't be enforced. I know Adobe will say things like, well, of course, it's because we're trying to protect against piracy. You can't protect software unless you do things like subscription. Of course you can. I use a package called Lightwave as my 3D modeler. It has a USB dongle that plugs in the back of the machine. If I haven't got the dongle, I can't use the software. You can control piracy perfectly well without moving to subscription. So please, Adobe and others, can we get rid of subscription-only software? Finally, at one on my list of annoying computing things is the way that computers warp time. By which I mean you can sit down on a computer to do a little bit of work, maybe check a bit of email or write something and do a bit of video editing, maybe play a game or something like that, surf the web, and then suddenly you look around and you realise it's got dark. And you don't quite know how it's got dark. You're thinking, where has all that time gone? And then you find yourself looking around even more and you find you're floating in space as the last sentient being at the end of time. Well, okay, it isn't normally quite as bad as that. But there is no doubt that computers get incredibly addictive. And whilst computers are amazing things that allow us to do all sorts of stuff, it's also the case that computers are a bit like digital vampires. They suck the precious time out of our lives. Now, I don't know quite what we can do about this, because clearly computing is so endemic to everything we do now, and all the developments we see in computing, we have seen for decades now, have been about making computers easier to use, about making a more fluid interface, about making them more addictive. But somehow, I think we've got to get a little bit more balance. Anyway, that's my list of annoying computing things. Maybe if you agree with some of them, let us know down in the comments section. Maybe you have other things that we annoy about computing, let us know about those as well. And if there's things we all agree on, maybe we can make a lot of noise about it and get the manufacturers and the software developers to actually fix this stuff. But now that's it for another video. Next time I'll get back to my normal fare, something on hardware or software, something practical like that. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've liked this video, you're on my wavelengths obviously, which could be worrying for you, but please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.